They say men are simple, but when it comes to love, we're far from simple. Before a man ever says those three small words, I love you, he goes through a journey, a quiet and unseen process that few people notice. It's not only about falling in love, it's about learning to trust, to open up, and to give in to something that feels bigger than himself. Today, let's go behind the scenes, inside the heart and mind of a man, to uncover the 5 secret stages every man passes through before he finally says, I love you. Every love story begins with a spark, that first small moment of curiosity that makes a man stop and take another look. It's not love yet, not even close. It's something softer, calmer, but strong enough to grab his attention. Maybe it's the way she smiles when she talks, the confidence in her tone, or the way she carries herself in a crowded place. Whatever it is, something about her presence makes him pause and notice. This marks the start of the first stage, the stage of curiosity. At this point, he doesn't know much about her. In fact, he doesn't want to know everything right away. He wants to feel her energy first. It's the mystery that draws him in. Without realizing it, he starts paying attention. Small things catch his eye. The sound of her laughter, the way she talks to people, or how she reacts when someone says something funny. These tiny details start to form an invisible thread of interest. For many men, this stage feels exciting because it's light-hearted and full of possibility. There's no pressure or emotional demand. It's the joy of discovery, the thrill of meeting someone new. At this point, he's not thinking about love or relationships. He's just drawn to the energy she brings. It's like a song he can't stop hearing in his head. He keeps replaying small moments, short conversations, tiny signs of connection. During the curiosity stage, men often act as quiet observers more than active participants. They watch from a distance, picking up hints, trying to figure out what makes this woman different. Some people assume men fall for looks first, but that's not always true. What really hooks him is the feeling he gets when she's near. Maybe it's a sense of peace, maybe it's the excitement of a challenge, or maybe it's simple happiness. Something in her presence stirs emotions he can't explain. Curiosity is also when his imagination takes control. His mind starts to drift, wondering what it would be like to talk to her more often, to know her better, to have deeper conversations. He starts to imagine what kind of person she might be when no one's around, what her story is, or what truly makes her smile. In this phase, he's building a picture in his mind, not of who she really is, but of who she could be. That's what makes curiosity powerful and risky. It's built on imagination, not yet reality. Soon, he begins to look for ways to interact with her. Maybe he finds small reasons to be near her, to start a short talk, or to make her laugh. Each of these moments is a tiny test. Every smile she gives back fuels his curiosity. Every natural reaction builds his belief that there's something real to explore. Still, he stays careful. He doesn't want to show too much interest too soon, because he's not sure what she feels. Curiosity gives him hope, but also makes him cautious. What's interesting about this stage is that men often hide their curiosity behind a calm surface. They don't want to look too eager or too open. He might act cool, pretend not to care, even though his thoughts keep returning to her again and again. It's his way of protecting his emotions. He wants to explore the connection without exposing his heart too early. Inside, however, that curiosity keeps growing stronger after every encounter. There's a kind of wonder in this stage too. Love, when it's just beginning, is always mysterious. It doesn't follow logic or plans, it just happens. A man may not understand why he keeps thinking about her or why he wants to be wherever she is. He just knows that things feel different when she's around. That difference becomes quietly addictive in the best way. He starts seeking that feeling more often without realizing that he's being drawn into something deeper. But curiosity can fade fast if it doesn't find depth. If that first spark doesn't meet emotional or mental connection, the interest can die quickly. That's why conversations and shared experiences matter so much here. A single honest talk, a shared joke, or a moment of understanding can transform curiosity into something more real. It's through these simple yet meaningful exchanges that the seed of connection starts to grow. This stage matters so much because it sets the tone for what comes next. If curiosity turns into comfort and trust, it opens the door to deeper emotions. But if it's met with confusion, distance, or a lack of harmony, it ends right there. Many possible love stories never go beyond this stage, not because the feelings weren't genuine, but because curiosity wasn't given a chance to grow. It's like lighting a match, but never letting it touch the candle. Men often go through an inner struggle during this time. Part of them is drawn in, while another part is afraid to lose control. Curiosity can make you feel both excited and nervous. He might tell himself it's just a crush or just interest, but deep down he senses it's something more. This stage not only tests his attraction, but also his readiness to become vulnerable later on. Another thing about curiosity is that it doesn't always begin with romance. Sometimes it starts as admiration. Maybe he respects her drive, her kindness, or her humor. That admiration slowly turns into fascination and then into emotional attraction. Without noticing, he begins to care. Not deeply yet, but enough to think of her when she's not around. That's when curiosity begins to shift into connection. In today's world, this stage can look different. Social media and texting have changed how curiosity grows. A man might find himself drawn to someone's posts, the way she expresses her thoughts, or how she interacts online. Yet, at its core, curiosity remains the same. It's always about searching for emotional connection. He's not just looking for someone attractive. He's looking for someone who feels right emotionally, someone whose energy feels familiar. Curiosity feels like standing at the edge of something unknown, both thrilling and uncertain. He doesn't yet know if it will lead to love or heartbreak, but he's ready to lean in just a little more, simply to find out. The beauty of this phase is in its uncertainty. It's fragile, innocent, and full of hope, untouched by fear, untouched by expectation. It's that rare, quiet moment before love starts to bloom, when the heart is open and curious, ready to be surprised by what comes next. Every man who has ever fallen in love remembers this stage clearly. It's the memory of that first look, that first exchange of words, that first unexplainable pull toward someone. It's the time when love quietly begins to grow long before either person even knows it. And while it might seem simple from the outside, this stage carries deep emotion. It's the moment when a man's heart begins to open, not completely, but just enough to let a little light in. The curiosity phase is like an invitation, a soft whisper saying there's something worth discovering here. It's the first heartbeat of love, the gentle start of a path that will challenge his patience, his courage, and his capacity to feel deeply. Inside that curiosity lies potential, potential for connection, for understanding, and one day for love. Every "I love you" ever spoken began right here, in that quiet moment when curiosity turned into care, and care started to grow into something words can barely describe. After curiosity, something changes. There's a shift, a turning point, where the spark that once felt easy and fun begins to feel heavier. This is the stage when a man starts to think, to question, to analyze what's really happening. It's not only about attraction or excitement anymore. It becomes about understanding, about figuring out what this connection means and whether it's worth the risk of taking the next step. This is the evaluation stage, where his heart and mind quietly start to battle. At first, he might not even notice he's entered this stage. One day, he's laughing easily, enjoying her company, feeling that small rush whenever she's near. Then suddenly, questions appear in his mind. What do I really feel? Am I ready for something real? Does she feel the same way? It's like curiosity started the fire, and now his mind is trying to manage the flames. Many men, by habit or by upbringing, rely on logic when emotions become too big to handle. So instead of letting himself fall freely, he begins to study his feelings, breaking them down moment by moment, searching for meaning, safety, and understanding. This reflection isn't only about her, it's also about himself. He begins to look inward, asking who he is, what he wants, and whether he's ready to risk his heart again. Real love asks for openness, and openness requires readiness. He might think about his past, what hurt him before, what mistakes he made, what patterns he doesn't want to repeat. Every old wound becomes a small voice in his head, warning him to take his time. So he takes a small step back, not because he doesn't care, but because he cares enough to be certain. During this period, he quietly observes how she behaves, not just toward him, but toward others and toward life itself. He pays attention to her values, her reactions, and her stability. He wants to know if she's someone he can depend on, someone who understands him, not just someone who attracts him. Even if his heart is leaning in her direction, his mind asks for proof that this isn't just temporary excitement. He notices little things, how she treats people, how she handles stress, how she talks about her dreams and her plans. Each small detail becomes part of his private list of reasons to stay or reasons to hold back. This phase can be confusing for both sides. To her, he might seem a little distant or inconsistent. One day he's warm and expressive, the next day quieter, harder to read. But inside, he's not pulling away. He's thinking. His mind is running through every possible scenario. Could this truly work long term? Would I be enough for her? Would she still want me once she sees the real me? These questions come from both hope and fear. Hope because he sees something promising. Fear because potential doesn't always guarantee safety. At this stage, love hasn't been spoken yet, but it's quietly being tested. He pictures what a life with her might be like, sharing responsibilities, facing challenges, maybe even building a home together. Then, just as quickly, he imagines losing her or opening up only to be hurt. That inner conflict can last for weeks, sometimes months. The evaluation stage isn't only about whether she's right for him, it's also about whether he's ready to give his heart without holding anything back. What makes this time so complicated is that men rarely express it openly. They've been taught to hide emotional confusion behind calmness. So while he's deeply thinking things through, he may appear relaxed or detached. He's trying to find answers, but he doesn't always know how to explain that he's in the middle of an emotional crossroad. This silence can be mistaken for disinterest, but it's not that he's lost interest. He's trying to understand. Another part of this stage is balancing between idealism and realism. In the curiosity stage, everything feels magical and perfect. But now, reality starts to appear. He begins to notice flaws, hers, his own, and those in the situation. The rosy filter begins to fade, and he starts to see things as they really are. But that's not a bad thing. In fact, it's an important step toward real love, the kind that chooses someone even after seeing their imperfections. True affection requires clarity, and before reaching that, his mind must face what's real. In this stage, he looks at compatibility from every angle: emotional, mental, and practical. Does she inspire him mentally? Do they share similar beliefs and values? Can they handle differences with respect? These questions slowly shape his understanding of whether this connection should grow or fade. For many men, love isn't only about emotion, it's about alignment. That's why this careful thought process makes his eventual "I love you" mean so much more. By that point, he's not unsure, he's confident. This stage also awakens a deeper awareness of vulnerability. He realizes that continuing forward means there will come a time when he'll need to drop his guard. That realization can be both exciting and terrifying. It's one thing to enjoy someone's company, but another thing entirely to allow them into your private world, your emotions, your pain, your past. He begins to ask himself if she's someone who can be trusted with those fragile parts of his heart. For many men, trust isn't built in one grand moment. It's built slowly, piece by piece. And this is the stage where that foundation begins. He might start testing the waters in small, quiet ways, sharing a personal story, revealing a small insecurity, or admitting a fear. Her reaction in those moments means everything. The way she listens, responds, or comforts him gives him silent proof of whether this is someone safe to open up to or not. If she handles his vulnerability with care, something changes. The walls he's built begin to soften. He starts to feel safer, more open, more connected. But if she reacts without empathy, those walls grow even higher, and he may retreat into himself again. This delicate balance defines the evaluation stage. It's where he learns whether he can truly be himself or if he must keep pretending. The evaluation stage isn't cold or distant, it's thoughtful. It's a man trying to make sense of his emotions in a world that doesn't always teach him how. It's the quiet storm before love truly takes hold, where his heart and mind are trying to agree on what feels right, what feels safe, and what feels worth the risk. If she listens with empathy instead of judgment, his trust grows stronger. But if she mocks or brushes it off, his walls rise even higher. These quiet emotional exchanges shape what he does next. He doesn't plan these moments as tests. They happen naturally, born from a need to feel safe before his feelings go any deeper. Inside, this part of his journey feels like standing at a crossroads. On one side is the comfort of staying guarded, and on the other is the risk of opening his heart. Every man knows that once he crosses that invisible line, there's no going back. Saying "I love you" isn't just an emotional confession, it's a declaration of vulnerability. Before he can reach that point, his logical mind needs some kind of reassurance, something that tells him he's not walking into emotional chaos. Sometimes this stage creates distance. He might pull back a little, not because he's rejecting her, but because he needs space to think and breathe. That distance helps him separate excitement from genuine emotion. And if, during that time apart, he finds himself missing her, thinking about her, or realizing that his days feel quieter without her presence, that's when he begins to understand that what he's feeling might be something real. This stage is where emotional clarity slowly takes form. Curiosity turns into contemplation, and attraction begins to grow into intention. It's not dramatic or glamorous. It's quiet, thoughtful, and deeply personal. Every hesitation and every pause plays an important role. It prepares him for the moment when love stops being a possibility and becomes a choice. What makes this stage beautiful is that it shows emotional maturity. He isn't rushing to declare his feelings. He's making sure that when he finally says "I love you," those words come from truth, not impulse. This careful reflection ensures that his emotions are grounded in reality, not fantasy. It's a man's way of protecting both himself and the woman he's beginning to care about. Because when he finally says those words, he wants them to carry full meaning, honest, certain, and complete. So while this stage might appear slow or uncertain, it's one of the most essential steps in the journey of love. It's the bridge between curiosity and openness, between interest and commitment. This is the space where his heart and mind learn to work together, and when they finally do, he emerges ready to open up, to take a risk, and to step into a love that's no longer imagined but real. This is the moment where everything shifts. The excitement that once felt light now begins to carry depth, and the curiosity that once danced playfully in his thoughts settles quietly in his heart. This is the stage of vulnerability, the point when a man starts lowering his guard. It's not a decision he makes deliberately, it just happens, often without him realizing it, as his feelings grow stronger and harder to hide. Vulnerability becomes the emotional turning point, the moment when he stops analyzing and starts truly feeling, in a way that's both beautiful and frightening. For many men, vulnerability doesn't come easily. From early on, they're often taught to stay strong, to hold emotions in, to never show too much of what's inside. Tears are seen as weakness, sensitivity mistaken for fragility, and openness confused with lack of control. So when he begins to sense himself becoming emotionally exposed, it challenges everything he's been taught about strength. Suddenly, he's faced with emotions that can't be explained away or suppressed. He feels the desire to express affection, to be honest about his thoughts, to admit that he cares more than he expected. During this time, small but powerful changes start to appear. The way he communicates begins to shift. His words become more thoughtful, his tone softer, his attention more steady. He listens differently, not just to her words, but to what she doesn't say. He becomes more aware of her happiness, more concerned about her feelings. Her mood starts to matter to him. Her sadness lingers in his thoughts. He starts to think about how his actions affect her. This is when love begins to evolve from something he enjoys into something he values deeply, a responsibility he chooses with care. Yet, with growing closeness comes fear. Vulnerability always brings risk, the risk of rejection, of being misunderstood, of heartbreak. He's revealing a side of himself few people ever get to see, and that openness makes him feel exposed. It's like walking into a room without armor after years of hiding behind a shield. He wants to share more, but part of him hesitates, unsure if she'll accept what she finds. This is when his internal struggle becomes the strongest. He wants to be real, but he's afraid that being real could cost him the connection he's building. At this point, his affection begins to express itself through authenticity. He starts opening up about things he once kept private, his failures, his fears, his insecurities. He may talk about past relationships, moments that hurt him, or his worries about the future. These aren't conversations meant to impress, they're moments meant to connect. When he reaches this point, he's no longer trying to seem perfect, he's trying to be understood. And when he feels understood, trust begins to take root. Vulnerability also shows in his actions. He starts showing up not only physically, but emotionally. He remembers the small things she says. He notices when she's quiet or distracted. He starts doing little gestures, not for attention, but simply to make her smile. These may seem like small acts, but they carry deep meaning. They're not grand romantic gestures. They're proof that his feelings are becoming real and growing stronger with time. However, vulnerability also brings emotional testing. He pays close attention to how she reacts when he lowers his guard. Does she listen when he shares his worries? Does she reassure him when he expresses doubt? Does she accept his imperfections without criticism? Her responses become the mirror that reflects whether he's safe to keep opening up or not. Every moment of kindness she shows encourages him to trust more, while every cold or dismissive reaction makes him retreat a little further. What many people don't realize is that when a man pulls away during this time, it's rarely because he's lost interest. More often, it's because he's overwhelmed by how deeply he's beginning to feel. Vulnerability isn't a straight path. It moves like the tide, sometimes forward, sometimes backward. One day, he might open up completely, and the next, he might grow quiet again. That isn't confusion, it's protection. It's his way of testing whether it's safe to keep showing his real self. This stage of vulnerability is fragile but powerful. It's where love stops being a fantasy and starts becoming human, imperfect, raw, and full of meaning. Every moment of honesty builds a foundation, one that will eventually carry the weight of real connection. When he finally learns that being open doesn't mean being weak, that's when love becomes possible in its truest form. Not as a game, not as a chase, but as something deeply felt and genuinely shared.